It's crazy coming from the Bay Area and all that history. I mean, you laid some on us before the show, just some interesting stuff about area where you come from. What was it like, going to high school during that time? Was this the late 90s?
It's the late 90s. I was really fortunate. I'll use that word a lot because I am my dad and mom, I come from a great family. My dad came from a really poor family. He was born in 1947 in Israel, but it wasn't Israel yet. It was Palestine. He came over after the 6-Day War, which was in 1967. He was wounded. It's a long story how he came to America through my aunt in Northern Ireland and my uncle, who had lived in San Francisco at the time. Came from Israel to America. My uncle came to America with maybe $200, $300 in his pocket. My dad probably came with 500. Came from families that were really poor. My mom, on the other hand, single child from San Francisco. Father and mother also, father was an immigrant, but worked really hard, and they were a little bit more well off. They had a grocery store. He was a boxing agent for boxers, I think, or doing some kind of promotions for fights. My father came from Israel to San Francisco, started from nothing with my uncle. My uncle at the time in 67 had an ice cream shop. But he eventually, didn't make money with the ice cream shop, but he was kind of a really social guy. Him and my dad together are just magical. Eventually became a baker. And in the 80s, my uncle invented an American truffle, which is a specific shape of a truffle. So he was already doing some amazing things with chocolate. He had a 25,000 square foot factory in Hunters Point, part of San Francisco, which was really dangerous at the time. It was near Candlestick Park. But I grew up as a little kid seeing him with I think it was 100 employees, white lab coats, making hundreds of thousands of these truffles and sculptures out of chocolate. The whole city knew him. We'd go to all these restaurants. My father was a restaurateur as well, but my uncle would show up with chocolates, and the top restaurants would have the tables waiting for you and whatnot. So I was fortunate in that sense of really being able to see a lot, do a lot in San Francisco, always being able to say I'm the nephew of Joseph Schmidt at that time was a really big thing. But I would use that list that I talked about earlier and really start visiting the shops. And some of my great friends that I grew up with, particular two guys, one Bosco and one was named Brad, we would start finding ways to creatively vend to these stores. So what we did, and this was all part of being in the Bay Area, we found this group that grew a bunch of train wreck in the Central Valley, and they were selling sun-grown train wreck at the time. And we asked them about where all their trim was going, and they didn't even know what to do with it. They were a Hmong Lao family, and I think it was Stockton. And they're like, you want it? We're getting it for free. Eventually they caught on. They were selling it for a little bit, but you would show up to this apartment complex, and they would, the whole apartment complex would be the same family. And they would bag by bag, the doors would open, and bag by bag, all these black garbage bags would come out of all of the different apartments, and we would fill vans up with train wreck trim that we would tumble. And train wreck was all the rage at that time. And we would tumble, and we would make these bricks of hash.
Potent smell too.
Potent smell, unique. Train wreck hash on the menu is just a really unique thing.
Racy high.
So that's how I met Berner for the first time, because we started vending to all of these shops on the list and whatnot.
What kind of hash you said? So
train wreck, it was pucks. We would use the Jack Puck press or something like that at the beginning, but then we made our own that was a little bit bigger.
Dry sift or dry wash?
Sift.
Okay.
Dry sift tumble, and then collect the resin heads. Before, I'd spent a lot of time in Amsterdam. Even at this time, I went when I was 19, 20, 21, staying at Mila, the isolator bag. I went to her hotel, the Hemp Hotel, stayed with her a lot. Met Marcus, Bubbleman, really met him out in Holland. I was I was going to the Cannabis Cups in Holland. Met Aryan the year he came out with Hawaiian Snow and passed around a joint this big. And it's really full circle to see him in Spain with you guys and just even be friends now and whatnot. But Bay Area, vending to all these stores, meeting Gil, became friends. That's how we, eventually got into doing Cookies Thailand and all these things. Getting reconnected through Pistol Point, through my partner and a project we were doing.
We can't skip over that. That's two massive things. We'll get into both those. Yeah.
So vending to all these shops, and eventually we were doing really well with that. And we're like, wow, like let's do one of these ourselves.
Hey, if you like that video and you want to see more, make sure you hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel. First Smoke of the Day clips.